Hey everyone, welcome back again, and we are diving into one of the most important and honestly one of the most confusing sections of your syllabus. Can you guess what we are going to talk about? Yes, it's foundations of Indian classical literature from Vedic wisdom to poetic and dramatic theories. Now I know what you're thinking and what you're wondering. You might be wondering, like, oh, it's tough, it's too old, it's too much to remember. But don't worry, my job today is simple, give you everything you need, under 10 minutes and make sure you actually remember it. Why? Because this isn't just any topic. UGC NET loves this. You always get at least one question from this chapter, and in the last paper, can you guess how many showed up? Two questions came straight from this area. So I have designed this session like a cheat code for you with proper system, proper codes and memory tricks. So you don't just learn it, you kind of master it. So my job is not to overload you with lots of information, but to give you what actually matters to the exam. So alright, let's get started, and as I promise, by the end of this short video, you'll have all kind of, sorted in your head. The first question really comes into everybody's mind is of what is Indian classical literature. And Indian classical literature is one of the oldest in the world. It's full of stories, poems, plays, and obviously ideas about life and art. And most of it written in which language? Simple Sanskrit. And it all started way back during the Vedic time. Now here comes the very important things that you always get in your UGC NET exam, the genre. And we are going to talk about chronological order of it. So if we go by time, it all started with the Vedas. Then come to the Brahmanas, then Aranyakas and the Upanishads. And after that, we have big epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata. Then comes the Nāṭyaśāstra, followed by Vedanta and Puranas, classical poems and plays. And finally, the different Shastra like Alankara, Kavya, Natya and Vyakaran. Our focus is only on four major Shastras, because in UGC NET, most questions are drawn from these four major branches of Indian literary theory. Can you guess what are these? Alankara, which was a talk about rhetoric, initiated by Bhāmaha and Dandin. Then second we have Nāṭyaśāstra. Everybody is aware about it, and it is all about dramaturgy, authored by who? Bharat Muni, everybody knows. Then the third is Kāvyaśāstra, which is all about poetics, founded by Ānandavardhana. Then Vyakaran, which is all about grammar, especially Ashtadhyayi by Panini. Very important because it has already showed up in your exam. So here you have to pay a little bit more attention. Do you know why? Because we are going to classify the tradition into two generations. Very important, and it's all because that's how it should go. And the first generation, which will be your core works like original theorists like Bhāmaha, Dandin, Bharata, Ānandavardhana and Panini. Then the second generation will come, the commentators, like scholars who clarified and expanded the core. So Dhananjaya, like, he has written Daśarūpaka. Abhinavagupta wrote what? Abhinav Bharati on Nāṭyaśāstra, and Lochana on Dhvani. That we'll talk about later in the session. So first is Nāṭyaśāstra and Daśarūpaka, which is kind of foundation of Indian drama. So let's talk about Nāṭyaśāstra a little bit more. So it's one of the oldest and most important texts on drama, dance and music, written by who? Bharat Muni. And it was the first work. That's what you have to remember. You can't go with the dates and all, but that's total 36 chapters, 6,000 verses. It brings together everything you see in Indian performance: acting, storytelling, rhythm, even makeup and costume. Also, there is a chapter about music as well. And in chapter 6 and 7, it introduces something really special, the Rasa. And that's where your question, pops in. And it describes how characters, emotions, their bhavas evoke Rasa, aesthetic delight in the audience. Originally, defining 8 Rasa, the ninth, Santa, tranquility, was added later by Abhinavagupta. And he said about it, the eight rasa are like eight gods, and the saint is like their highest center. Very important that you have to remember. Abhinavagupta's Abhinav Bharati is a commentary on Nāṭyaśāstra. That's very important because question usually comes from that. And now let's come back to Natyashastra, and here we have bhavas, which have three kinds. Can you guess what it is? First is a sthai, which is kind of a stable, enduring emotion, forming the base of rasat. Second is sanchari or transitory, fleeting feelings, like it has in 33 numbers. You don't have to remember the number, just leave it. Then sattvic and or you can say anubhava, involuntary, physical response like tears or tremors. They have 8 in total numbers, okay, types. Then chapter 19-20 cover drama theory, including 10 types of play. Very important, Daśarūpakas, right? Stagecraft, plot, construction, and acting convention. Because in UGC NET they ask this question. We are going to talk about Dhananjaya's, the commentary that we told, how he kind of, make it perfect, or maybe, a kind of expanded it. So here we're gonna summarize and talk about it. So what he did, he thus systematized Nāṭyaśāstra and became an essential treatise of classical Indian drama, and also UGC kind of love about Dhananjaya, because there are like 2 questions they have asked in your previous exam. It's very important. That's why we are going to discuss a little bit more about it. And before that, I want you to outline the number first. Divide like 10, then 5, 5, 5. So how we're gonna kind of outline it? 10 types, Daśarūpakas of drama, then 5 Avasthās, the kind of stages of dramatic action, then 5 Arthaprakṛtis, which is elements of plot, then 5 Sandhis, juncture in plot structure. Because they have asked question based on that in your previous exam. First, let's discuss 5 Avasthās, stages of dramatic action. Pratyasa, kind of prospect of success. Second is Arambh, which is beginning. Then Yatana, which is effort. And Niyatapti, certainty of success. And the 5th one is Phalagam, kind of a result, attainment of result. Secondly, we have 5 Arthaprakṛtis, elements of plot, like Bija, seed, Bindu, drop, Pataka, subplot, Prakari, accessories of whatever incident, and Karya, the final result. And the last one, 5 Sandhis, juncture in plot structure. You got 1 question based on that. The first one is Mukha, opening. Second is Pratimukha, link. Then Garbha, development. Then Avamarsha, pause, reflection. And Upasamriti, like conclusion. Now after Nāṭyaśāstra, we're going to talk about the different genre or different study, like poetics in Indian classical, you can say. What it is? Kāvyaśāstra, the soul of Indian poetics. The roots of Kāvyaśāstra, the science of poetry, can be traced back to Nāṭyaśāstra, but later it developed into an independent discipline through later theorists. Kavya refers to poetic composition imbued with rasa, aesthetic essence, guna, which is quality, and alankara, which is ornamentation. Bhāmaha, very important. The first one you can say Bhāmaha, who wrote about Kavya Alankara, emphasized Alankara, kind of figure of speech as central to poetic beauty. Second is Dandin. He wrote what? Kavya Darsha. And it is all about discussed gunas, poetic virtue, dosas, kind of flaws, and introduced the concept of riti, which is style. Let's talk about Ānandavardhana first. 9th century, revolutionized poetics in his Dhvani, very important, by introducing the Dhvani theory, suggestion as the soul, your atma of poetry. So what he said, when the poet writes, he creates a resonant field of emotion. That's what? Dhvani. He classified poetry into 3 types. Dhvani Kavya, where suggestion dominates. Then Guni Bhut Vyang, kind of Kavya, suggestions plays a kind of secondary role. Then third is Chitra Kavya. Now let's talk about Abhinavagupta. Remember the guy who already made commentary on Nāṭyaśāstra with his what? Abhinav Bharati. But here we are going to talk about his Lochna. It was a commentary on Kāvyaśāstra, especially Ānandavardhana's Dhvani. So what Abhinavagupta did was very special. He didn't just explain theory in terms of beauty and emotion. He went deeper and connected it with kind of spiritual experience. So according to him, we read kind of great poem or watch a powerful play. It's not just about entertainment, it's about feeling something deep inside. He believed that for Rasa, to enjoy that aesthetic joy to happen, the reader or viewer must emotionally connect with the work. That's how art touches our soul, right? So for Abhinavagupta, experiencing rasa was almost like a step toward a spiritual realization. So it is very important timeline, because in UGC NET exam, all the questions are kind of, revolve around it. So let me give you the list. The first one is Panini. 5th to 6th century, and as you know, Ashtadhyayi he wrote, right? Second is Bharat Muni, wrote Nāṭyaśāstra. Bhasa known for Charudatta, then Swapnavas Vadattam, then Uru Bhangam, very important, and Karbharam. They have asked question based on that. So remember the names of works, they actually ask questions of match the following type of questions. So Kalidas, who wrote everybody knows Abhigan Shakundalam, Meghdut, and Raghuvansa, they have asked question, the same kind of question on Kalidas that match the type. Then Bhāmaha, who authored Kāvyaśāstra, we already talked about it in the beginning of the session. Then Danton, as you know, Kāvyaśāstra, same type of question. Then Vamana introduced the Riti school of poetics. Didn't come any question based on that yet, but later what we see. Then Bhavbhuti already asked question about what he wrote, like Uttaram Charita. Then it was already asked in exam. Then Amogh Varsha, they have asked about it, like what he wrote. So he wrote Kavi Raj Marg, and it was same as the same kind of correct and match type question. Then Ānandavardhana, the Dhvani theory, especially he introduced that in his Dhvani. Very important, because in exam you always get question. Then Dhananjaya, very important right now, UGC NET favorite topic, and about his Daśarūpaka. Always get question. Last time they have asked 2 questions based on that. So in that perspective, this particular commentator is very important. Then Abhinavagupta, who wrote Abhinav Bharati, as you know, for Nāṭyaśāstra, and Vachna for Dhvani. Just kind of imprint this in your mind. Then Kuntaka, who proposed Vakriti theory in his work Vakriti Vita. Okay. Then Rajsekhara, who composed Kāvyaśāstra, asked already in exam. Then Jayadeva, authored what? Gita Gobind, already asked in your exam. Then Kalhana, they have asked in pair type question, like about his work Raj Tarangini. Now you might be wondering, it's a big list, how can I remember? It's not your problem. Students often ask me, sir, how do we remember so many names, dates, and works from Indian classical literature? It's kind of impossible. And it applies in every topic, if it is about chronological answer. So here's the answer for you. We use formula, and we remember the first and last writer first, and then we fill everything in between using some mnemonic codes with only 4 names. And if you make it too big, you will forget it. So make it very short, mostly like 4 names, not more than that. And this formula, I call it start, middle, and end formula. So how I do it: first work, then mnemonic, and then the last work. Simple and super effective. And let's put that in example so you'll remember. The first one, Panini, right, in the list. So you can see the list in your screen, and then we put all the mnemonic, like I have made one mnemonic, Bharbhas Ka Bham. then Dandi Bhavanam, then Amogh and Dhyan Abhinav, then Kuntaraj Jaikal, and the last one is Kalhana. Remember, it's short out. All the lists are there in your code. Now you see how easy it is to remember everything in just 4 simple code. So that's what you have to remember. Just do more practice, and if you can make your own code, you can do that as well. So write down all these codes in your diary, in your notebook, whatever we are going right now. And here I just want to talk about movement also, because in your exam recently they asked about the movement and what were these movements like bhakti and vachana. They have asked about it. So we start way back with the Vedas. So that is your first movement, right? Those are the oldest, full of hymns and rituals, and then we move into the Upanishada, which go a little bit deeper into philosophy. Then comes the great epic movement, kind of the Ramayana and Mahabharata, right? Full of stories, and all the stories with heroes, dharma, moral dilemma, and all these things. So after that, we enter into the golden classical age of Sanskrit. And what happens there? Where legends like Kalidas, Bhavbhuti, Bharata were writing poetry, drama, and theories about aesthetics like Rasa, Bhakti movement. Saints like Kabir, Mirabai, Tulsidas start writing in simple language, so that even common people could actually connect with God, directly through the love and devotion. And down the south in Karnataka, we also had the Vachana movement, and this was kind of like Bhakti movement, but focused on social reform. So that was your question recently they have asked on Vachanas. Saints like Vasavana wrote short, powerful poems called Vachanas and spoke out against caste and rituals. And around the same time, from the Islamic side, the Sufi movement started spreading, like saint like Khwaja, Christie and Bule Shah. Now, very important question is, where are these classics hidden? The answer is institutions and archives. A lot of classical knowledge that we have today, all those old texts, poems, philosophy, we are lucky they have been preserved so well. And thanks to some of the amazing institute across India. And can you guess? And from that already, question they have asked, continuously they're asking based on that. Like, for example, the Asiatic Society in Kolkata. That was started way back in 1784 by Sir William Jones, and who was, one of the first places where people began collecting and studying India's ancient text seriously. Then there is the Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, and it is actually in Pune, which is famous for working on Sanskrit text and language studies. And if you ever go to Mysore, check out that Dhvani Loka. It's a place where they focus on Indian literary theory and aesthetics, especially things like Rasa and classical poetics. And up in Shimla, if you just go north, there is the Indian Institute of Advanced Study, IIAS, a beautiful place where scholars from different fields come together to study Indian thought and philosophy. Now, if you're ever in Kolkata, the National Library of India is the biggest one in the country, as you know. It has a massive collection of ancient books and manuscripts, like a treasure chest for all the researchers. So anyway, and in Delhi, we have the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, which is more about modern Indian history, but they also keep old texts and support research on classical ideas. And don't forget about Connemara Library in Chennai. It's one of the 4 national depository library and plays a big role in preserving books and keeping our literary heritage alive. So all these places together help make sure that the rich knowledge of India's past isn't lost, and that we can still read them today if you just go and visit those libraries and museums. So now it's time to give you another special topic where major match the following type of questions pops in. And what are these? Can you guess? Translation of these works. The first translator that I'm going to talk about is Charles Dickens, who actually translated the Bhagavad Gita, and he was the first English translation of a major Sanskrit philosophical text. Then we have Sir William Jones, who translated Manu Smriti and Sakuntala, and he was also founder of the Asiatic Society that we are going to visit, remember. Anyway, next is Horace Hayman Wilson. He actually translated Vishnu Purana, and it is the first translation of a Purana into English. Then we have Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Everybody knows, and actually in previous exam they have asked Kena is a Katha and Mundaka Upanishad. Early 19th century kind of brought Upanishad thought into English for reform and rational discourse. Then we have Max Muller, and most of you might be aware of that he has translated Rig Veda, Upanishads, and also he's the editor of Sacred Books of the East. Made Indian text central to comparative religion and philosophy. Next is Ralph Griffith, and he translated Vedas, especially Rig Veda, Samveda, Yajurveda, Atharveda, and one epic Ramayana. And he also translated almost, the entire Vedic corpus into English verse. Then we have Mamta Nath Datta, who translated Mahabharata, also translated Ramayana, Bhagavad Puran, and Vishnu Puran. Then we have Swami Prabhavandana and also Christopher Isherwood together. They worked on the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of God, and a poetic and spiritual rendering. The last one is Eknath Easwaran, and he actually translated Bhagavad Gita, Upanishad, and Dhampada, and widely used for educational and spiritual purpose globally. Okay, that's all. You have guaranteed a kind of one question in your exam, and if you're lucky, you might get 2 questions. Now use your diary well, put everything together in one page so it's easy to revise later. Find a way to make it short, and of course be creative and be there in our next session. Next guaranteed question. So until then, adios amigo.